Hello and welcome to the Coco and Flora channel. My name's Eva. I'm a knitter, a stitcher and a maker and merchant, and this is a video chat about everything I have been knitting and sewing in April 2025. So welcome along. I hope you are well and I hope this video keeps you company while you're working away on your own projects or just having a relax. So I've got knitting to share with you this month and a little bit of dressmaking and a little bit of home sewing, and I've just remembered that that's still downstairs, so I'll have to pause and get that in a bit. But let's start with the knitting and the Cadre jumper, which is something that I think I've started and finished it this month. I showed you some teal yarn with a lovely pop of chartreuse, and that's what I've made. So this is the Harlow sweater by Cadre. It's a DK drop shoulder construction, and it's really cool. You start with an I-cord and then you pick up for the back and the front, right and left, and you kind of pick up from that I-cord. I knit the size small, which takes 325 grams according to this. I had 500 grams of Cascade Heritage, which is 100% superwash. I don't know if this colour is still available, but it's 1960 is the colour. You get 220 yards or 200 metres for 100 grams, and I had 5 balls of this, so 500 grams. And I also bought from Pixie Yarns a fingering weight yarn called Pear in a lovely chartreuse colour, which I held double to make the pops of colour for the cuffs and the neck and a little bit at the bottom. So I will put some footage in of me wearing it now so you can see what it looks like on. Here is the finished sweater. So it's longer than the pattern calls for because I've used up my extra yarn for that. So I would have had, I don't know, getting on for 200 grams extra. I haven't used all of the Pear yarn because I only wanted a little bit at the bottom. So most of the bottom ribbing is in the teal. And then I did a row of stockinette every time I changed colour, so it looked a bit neater. So I did a row of stockinette, 1 row of knit 2 purl 2 and bound off with the Pear yarn. It's a split hem. It's supposed to be lower at the back, and mine is slightly but not loads because I was running out of yarn at that point. It's got really long cuffs. I think they're about 4 inches. The pattern doesn't call for decreases at the cuff, but I decreased by 6 because I just didn't want it to be too wide. I only wanted to decrease by 4, but that would have left me with an odd amount for knit 2 purl 2, so I had to do 6 in the end. Pre-blocking, these sleeves were really short, but blocking has brought them out just right, if not slightly long, but I kind of like that. And I really like the funnel neck. I think maybe it could be a bit tighter. I got gauge by going down a needle size. I think it calls for 4.5mm needles. Yeah, I used 4, and then for the ribbing I went down to a 3.25, and maybe I should have gone down to a 3. I did actually do a little gauge swatch for this one, so I've used about just under the 500 grams, so all of my teal yarn has gone, and I've got about 35 grams left of this beautiful Pear yarn from Pixie Yarns. This is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon sock weight yarn, and I'm really happy to have those leftovers because I think that will make nice contrast heel toes and cuffs for a pair of socks, maybe a pair of scrappy socks. And I'm very happy with the finished item. It's probably going to get a little bit warm here in England to be wearing this, so it'll probably come into its own in the autumn later on in the year. But I really like how it turned out, and I love the pattern. It was very, even though these are sort of new construction techniques for me. So there's the I-cord at the back, which you start here and you work downwards and you do the ribbing for the funnel neck at the end. I did make a slight mistake where I've gone, you can see that nice neat I-cord line, and then it gets a little bit fatter because I shifted over where I was picking up the stitches, but luckily that's at the back. And in Irish tradition, you should always leave a mistake in your knitting so that your sole can escape. So it's a good job really that I've got a little mistake in the neck so my sole doesn't get trapped in my sweater. I thought it would actually come out a lot longer with my extra yarn, but it sort of just covers my bum really. That's how long it is. And yeah, I really like it. And I'm quite happy that I managed to knit that within a month. It was such an enjoyable knit. I really like Caidree's patterns. There's only one bit in it that might have been a bit unclear, and there was a video tutorial, so you know they're very kind of friendly to learning new techniques. And towards the end of the knit, I really wanted to cast on something else, so I was very motivated to get it done. I did have to go back and redo one of the cuffs because first of all I decreased a quarter of the stitches, so every fourth stitch I knit two together, and that felt like a bit too much and didn't really go with the vibe of the sweater, so I did have to take that all out and do it again. So that was a bit demotivating, and I did put it down for a few days, but it's done now and I'm really happy with it and would super recommend the pattern. It was really lovely. There is short rows as well at the back, as I recall, to make the back of the neck a little bit higher. And there we are. That's the main thing that I have been working on this month. I did knit one other thing, and it was a little frog, so I'll put a little picture or video in here of the frog. I wanted to knit a gift for somebody, and it's always awkward when you're a podcaster because I needed to give the gift away and I wasn't able to have it to show you here and now, so I was remarking upon this to my associates Coco and Flora and Kyle, who you can see back here. This is Coco, this is Flora, and this is Kyle. These are all patterns knit from the Claire Garland or Dot Pebbles Knits frog pattern. And I was talking to my associates here about the problem of not being able to show the podcast viewers a good detailed look at, well, the working title I gave this fourth frog was Juliet. It's not mine to name, but I always give my frogs a working title. And these guys said, Eva, leave it to us. You go and get on with your knitting and we will write and star in and film and edit a short art house movie, and we'll have it on your desk by 8 AM tomorrow so that you can show the podcast viewers a good look at Juliet. So that's exactly what they did. So may we now present to you a short art house film entitled Juliet. Well, I hope you liked that, and I hope that makes up for the fact that we don't have her here in person. I think you'll agree they did a great job on that little film. The pattern that I use for the lovely sort of Red Riding Hood cape, I'll put on the screen here. I got it from an Etsy seller, and it was a really nice little pattern. It's only, I don't know, it's less than £2, and you start with a provisional cast on, knit the cape part with just simple increases, and then you pick up and do the hood, and you finish with a 3-needle bind off to seam it together. I did my 3-needle bind off on the outside because I like the little ridge detail, but on the pattern you're actually meant to do that on the inside so that it's like a flatter, more seamless looking hood. But it was a lovely little pattern and I really enjoyed knitting that. I used the leftovers from a hat that I knit. Do you remember my sort of red and pink striped hat? I had a little bit of yarn left over from that. It was an Indie Yarn Club yarn and it was perfect because it was looked like a red cape, but it was just a little bit different. So that was super fun to knit Juliet this month. I knit her out of Drops Nord in a dark green, held together with a light green mohair, and then just a couple of scraps for the brown tummy area. And I probably should mention that I always use much smaller needles for my frogs and therefore any associated patterns, just because I like them smaller so they work more with doll's house furniture. And as to that, I have recently bought myself some 1.5mm needles. These are Addy Basics, they're 20cm double pointed needles. I struggled to find them at this thin size. Look how tiny they are, and I had to get them off Amazon in the end. And the reason I've done that is because I've been watching the It Is a Sarah podcast, and Sarah has been knitting little cotton rabbits and clothes, which are all patterns by Julie Williams, and it reminded me that I've had the tiny dresses pattern in my Ravelry basket for ages, and I'd seen another Raveller made it work for even smaller dolls. I think they're written for, I think Julie's small rabbits are 7 inches tall. My frogs are 4 to 5 inches tall. But I saw another Raveller say that they made it work for a smaller doll by using 1.5mm needles and I think fingering weight yarn. So I bought that pattern, which I'll pop in here so you can have a look at all the variations that you get. Going to have a go at making some clothes for Flora in particular with tiny needles. And the only other knitting news is more stuff that I've bought. I didn't mean to buy a load of stuff this month, but I seem to have. I guess my restraint just cracked. So I did place a Wool Warehouse order. Whilst I ordered enough to get the free postage, so that was a great opportunity to get a hold of some of the crochet cotton that I was talking about to do more borders on my pillowcases like I'd done last month. So I picked up a corally colour and a pale pink in the Rico Essentials crochet cotton yarn. So I'll be able to progress my pillowcase stash. But the main thing that I bought that got me that free postage was some of the Wool Warehouse own brand sock yarn. So this is Merino Sock by Yarn Smiths. It's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. This one is the hydrangea colourway, and I have got 2 of these because if you, I don't know if this offer is still on, but if you buy 2 you get them for £5 each. So I bought this hydrangea and I've balled one up because I've started the project that I had in mind for this. I also bought it in the moss green colourway. So I got 2 of those. I don't really like working from these kind of sausage shapes, so I did go ahead and ball up the blue one so that I could work with it more easily. And then there's 2 shades of brown in this range, and I think this one is rich brown and the other one is chocolate brown. I think that's right. So that's quite a nice medium brown. And the thing that I have bought them all for is a pattern that I was so excited to make. It's what sped me through the Harlow sweater when I was getting towards the end, and I cast it on last night. And it is the Nausicaa, which is a pattern by Audrey Borrego. I hope I'm saying that correctly, otherwise known as Yarn Flakes. And I saw on another podcast, I think it might have been on the Noble Character Crafts podcast, that Audrey is no longer selling her designs, and so she's extremely generously made most of them available for free. So I selected several to put in my Ravelry library. This, it's a bit hard to see the detail on this one here, but it's, you've got some eyelets at the top here, and I think again before the ribbing, it's twisted ribbing, and it's just a nice lightweight tee, and yeah, completely free, and I'm really excited to knit it. I could see this being like really useful to wear with lots of different things, so I cast on in the hydrangea colourway, and that's what I've got so far. This is what I did last night. So it's top down, as you can see, just do a little bit of ribbing, about an inch worth of ribbing, then some eyelets, and now I'm just beginning to get into the raglan increases. So I bought 2 of each because I'm pretty sure that I will need more than 100 grams, because I'm knitting the 4th size, which is technically a little bit less ease. That gives me 0 positive ease, but I'm thinking that mine might come out slightly bigger because I tend to be a slightly looser knitter than the gauges usually call for, so winging it as usual. And I will definitely want to knit mine a little bit longer than the cropped design, but I really love this shade of blue, and I hope it works out with a good fit and everything, because I could really imagine having fun knitting loads of these. It feels, this might sound really daft, but this project just feels really magical. I don't know why, it's got a really light and magical energy about it. So far I'm having loads and loads of fun knitting this. I'm not very far into it, and I don't know how long it will take being on fingering weight yarn. The size of needle I'm using is the one that's called for, and it's 3.25 for the ribbing, and then up to 3.75 for the main body. And I think this will be quite customizable. I think you could do some really fun details with the ribbing, do some interesting ribbing, or maybe even add some lace work before you get to the ribbing. So I would highly recommend going and checking out Audrey's catalogue of designs. I even bought another knitting related thing as well, I think fairly near the beginning of this month. Paula of the Stitched by Mrs D podcast did a yarn dyeing collaboration with Lay Family Yarn, and I always like to buy those because I really enjoy watching all those podcasts so much. It's really nice to support this endeavour. So I didn't really need any yarn, so I tried to buy something that I definitely had a project in mind. So I ended up buying the floof, which is 65% baby Suri alpaca and 35% mulberry silk. That's 50 grams, and I'm hoping that will be enough to hold double with something else to knit the Grandma Core hood. I think that's what it's called. I'll pop a picture in, by Kutava Kika or Veronica Lindberg. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to hold double with it, because it's awkward quantities for that pattern. You need something like 125 grams of the main yarn. So I'll have to see. So you can't just use a single skein and use that up. So I'll have to see what I can hold it double with. But this is called Beautiful Bunting, and it's got really pretty pastel colours in it. So I'm thinking if I can get a nice pale plain tonal yarn to hold this double with and highlight all these pretty colours, that could be really nice. So I don't have any plans to cast that on yet, but I thought it might be a lovely project for the back end of this year when it starts to get a little bit colder again. And I really like that pattern because you can wear it just as a neck warmer, and then you can pull it up if you get chilly. Oh, in that bag, previous Eva cleverly thought she would put the band for the pixie yarns of my Harlow sweater in there so that I would find it when I came to podcast, which was a great plan if I had remembered that I'd done that. So that's the pear yarn from Pixie Yarns that I used for my pop of colour in my Harlow. So I think that's everything for knitting. So on to dressmaking now, and I made a Margot top by Blue Dot Patterns. I'm a pattern repeater when it comes to this project. I've made several. I struggled with the sizing a bit because I think when I ever first started making them, I made the small. It was a PDF pattern which I'd printed out and cut out, so I had to print it out again to make the medium, which kind of almost fit but was always a little bit tight under the arms. I printed out the large, and I think I didn't print it to scale, and I made it up and it was like a giant circus tent, and I didn't connect that I'd printed out the wrong scale of pattern until recently when I went to make my next top. I thought I'm going to lay the medium on top of the large and kind of grade between the two where I need the extra room, and that's when I realised that the large one was crazy big. So I really didn't want to print it all out again, probably for the fourth time. So I made the medium and I just took a slightly narrower seam allowance. I took basically 1/4 of an inch seam allowance where I needed to. So when I first bought this pattern, which is several years ago now, it was quite a limited size range. You literally had, I think, small, medium and large, and I went online to check if it's still available, and it has got an expanded size range now. I think it's maybe not as broad as some are. I think it maybe goes up to a 48-inch bust with some added ease on top of that, and I can't remember what the smallest size is, but it has definitely been updated and everything. And it's, you make this yoke which is lined, you sort of self-line it, and then you have to do some hand stitching to secure those down together, but it's lovely the way that's all finished. And then there's some gathering where you attach the front and the back, and then you do a little bit of gathering on the sleeve, so you've got a tiny amount of kind of puff sleeve going on, and then elasticated cuffs and a high-low hem. And I think I had already made some adjustments in that I'd expanded a little V out of the yoke to give me, because it was just a little bit tight across the bust and under the arm, so I just needed a little bit more room, and I widened this part of the pattern to give slightly more gathers, and all of that has worked. This one fits great now, so I think I'm going to make even more of them. I just really enjoy wearing them. This placket is fake, you just stitch it on and it doesn't do anything, and I used some buttons in my button tin just left over from my daughter's childhood dresses. I always used to take the buttons off things that had worn out before I threw them away. So it's good that they've seen the light of day again, and I think they match the pink nicely. You might remember this fabric from a Helen's Closet orchard dress that I made. Not orchard, orchid. I always get that word muddled up with that pattern. And I got this from Rainbow Fabrics. It's an extra wide fabric. It's meant for quilt backing, and it's a cotton sateen, and it's very lovely for garments. It's really stable but also lightweight and drapey, so it's very nice to wear. Feels really cool. And I don't think I have taken any pictures yet of me actually wearing this, so I'll do that after the podcast and pop it in now. But I'm super happy with that and definitely want to make some more. Something else that I sewed up this month is what I am wearing, which is a wired headband. I laid it out on my kitchen table so you can see the shape of it. And as you can see from those close-ups, it's a lovely Liberty fabric that's got Snoopy and Charlie Brown in amongst the floral design. And this was a lovely present, this piece of fabric, from my friend. So thank you if you're watching, I really love it. And I made this up so that it would be something that I could wear often. So the fabric was 10 inches wide, so I haven't taken anything off that. I just folded it in half. I did take a little bit off the length of the fabric and I cut this to 32 inches. I then cut an angle off it so that the ends are shaped so that they look a bit bow-like. I've just wrapped this around and then you can kind of tweak them because they've got wire in to look like a bow. I think I probably should have made it 33 or 34 inches long so that I could have done a more angled, maybe a 45-degree angle, and then the shortest part of it would have been about 32, but even so it's long enough. And what I do is I put some wire in the longer end and then I push it to the back and sew a channel so that it can't move, and that just makes it a bit easier to kind of get the look that you want because it literally stays where you put it. So I really enjoy making those. I've got quite a few of them, but I've never made one this wide before and I really like it. Then my home sewing project was I have updated my peg bag and I've turned it into a peg apron. So I'll put the dimensions of the fabric on the screen because I can't remember, but basically you make a rectangle and you cut off an angle at one of the ends for the pocket and then fold it upwards in half. I chose to line mine, so this is a remnant of very lightweight upholstery fabric and this is a quilting cotton. I sewed them right sides together, leaving like a raw edge at the bottom, folded it up, and then I enclosed that raw edge with my waistband. This one ties at the back, but you could make it double long so that you could wrap it round and tie it at the front, and it's working out really well so far because instead of having to keep going back and collecting your pegs from the peg bag, you've always got your pegs with you. So put some footage in of me probably at the end of the podcast wearing it and using it. It's worked out very well. I like having this now instead of a peg bag and it doesn't fall off the washing line in the wind. Oh, and the other thing to say is that I enclosed a sort of, I can't think of the word, loop, so that I can hang it up when it's not in use, and to save the straps trailing down if they were very long ones, you can just tuck those into the pockets. So that's everything that I've sewn this month, I think, but I also bought some things related to sewing. Rainbow Fabrics were having a 40% off sale, so even though I don't really need any more fabrics, I kind of wanted to make another Margot pinafore. I think I made one in the last month's vlog, and whilst I have got fabric for that, it only takes 1 metre of fabric, so I didn't want to cut into 2 metres of fabric and then have 1 metre of fabric that I didn't know what to do with. So they had some denim, and this worked out at £4.20 for 1 metre of denim, so I thought that was a really good opportunity to pick some of this up, and that's all I need to make another Margot pinafore. It's quite a lightweight denim and a lovely kind of mid blue. So I picked that up, and whilst I was there, I can never resist some lovely cotton gingham. And so I got a fairly small, I'd say this is like 1/4 inch gingham, 100% cotton, and that was I think £6 for 1 metre, but for some reason, maybe it was the end of a bolt, they've actually sent me 1.5 metres. So I think I might actually make another Margot top with this, and it would probably go quite nicely with that. So I've picked up a whole outfit for a tenner, apart from all the work I've got to do to make the outfit, but even so, I think that was a nice little fabric splurge. And then something else arrived this month, which I actually treated myself to. I always buy myself a Mother's Day present, and I got these lovely labels for your garment sewing, I guess. And I love the idea of these labels, and I often see ones that I like, but these ones I absolutely loved so much I really wanted to buy them. So I've got these neon quilt blocks, which I think are really cool. I got these from a lovely shop called Something Beautiful. I'll put it on the screen. I'd never ordered from this fabric shop before, but it was a really lovely experience. I really enjoyed shopping with them. So, and the brand is Sarah Hart's, and there's loads of designs in addition to the ones that I'm showing you. I got these strawberries in various different colours. You get 8 in a pack, and I got some more quilt ones in these lovely gold, pink and teal colours. So I can't wait to start putting those in my garments. I think there was a slight delay with one of them, which is why they didn't arrive until the middle of this month, and why one of them didn't make it into my Margot top. But they also do stars and hearts and all sorts of things. So if you like labels for your garments and your sewing, it's definitely worth checking out this brand if you haven't already seen them. So I think that's everything from me this month. In May, I'm going to be busy working on my Nausicaa and hopefully sewing up those clothes into an outfit, and hopefully having a go at really tiny doll dresses with my 1.5mm needles. So thank you so much for joining me. I'd love to hear what you've been up to and what you're making in the comments, and I hope to catch up with you really soon. Stick around for some rare footage of April, and I'm wishing you loads of fun with your making. See you next month. Bye for now.